I mean, I think there's good concern for worry about a stock price. I think, as I said before, everything depends on whether it can get the revenue going in a Facebook-like fashion, or else does it struggle in a Twitter-like fashion. And I think that's where the concerns are. Obviously, there's a lot of bullishness around it, a lot of personal interest by people because they like the product, and I just think it's a question of how they perform going forward with their revenue targets and their advertising and their other businesses, and that's where it'll all shake out. And I think that's what today's about. People are a little worried about that issue.
Kara, what do you think is the most important metric to look at when it comes to Snap? Because their whole argument has been, well, don't look at overall user growth. We don't care about users in far-flung places that don't have developed ad markets, for example.
Right.
And they call themselves a camera company, which to me is strange, because if they're making money off of advertising, it's not the creators who we need to be concerned about, it's the people viewing. They should be a screen company, right? So what number are you watching to gauge the health of this company?
I think their revenue. I just think their revenue. If they can really monetize these users that use it. I think I think they're using super loosely compared. They're not like a GoPro, and they certainly don't want to be compared to GoPro, given their performance, their stock performance. But I think that what they are is in that people use their cameras to communicate and use it as a communications tool, and therefore presumably attract advertisers to that captive audience there. So I think it's just a question of how they do from a revenue point of view. I think that's what everybody should look at, not their user growth necessarily, but how they can monetize those users.
So when Needham, for instance, Kara, says even if Snap grows revenue eightfold by 2019, the share price would decline based on Facebook and Google EV to sales ratios. I mean, what do you mean when you say get revenue going?
Well, I think it's one of these growth stocks. I think people feel as if it's, anything could happen at this company, right? They could do anything at all. I mean, someone this weekend of all times, after it went public, said, well, now I guess they'll be bought to me. Someone pretty high up, and I was like, what? And I hadn't even thought of that, like it could be grabbed by any of these companies now that it has a value, a specific value on it. It could, I think the issue is, how do you get a piece of that advertising market in a market that's dominated almost completely by Facebook and Google? How do you get a thing in edgewise? And it doesn't mean someone can't do that. I just think these valuations are very lofty for it, and therefore they're going to have to grow into it in some fashion. And I think a lot of these people having worries is the right thing to be worried about.
Obviously, another rough week for Uber. Some new reports. Travis Kalanick looking to hire a second in command to help make decisions. That's according to the information. FT also has a report of a growing number of frustrated employees exploring ways to leave the company, like jumping ship to rivals. Have you seen a week for that company before, like the one we had last week?
Coming up, I mean, they've got a lot of things to come out. Bonuses happen on March 15th, I believe, and a lot of people, I've been getting emails from a lot of employees talking about leaving after they get bonuses. I think there's still a lot of shoes to fall around how they deal with their culture, especially around sexual harassment and sexism. They've got the report to come out. They've got to, probably they'll add another board member would be my guess, probably a female board member. There has been talk about a number 2. It's not quite as far along as that, but at the same time, the question is how do you put some strictures in place around Travis Kalanick, the CEO, and that's being discussed by everybody there.
Kara, how bad does it have to be, though, for employees to be thinking about leaving Uber at a time like this, right after Snap goes public, has this huge pop? Uber is one of probably just 2 other companies that are seen as being in that league, Uber and Airbnb. You got the SVP engineering leaving after a piece that you at Recode wrote, and then VP of product also leaving, and then Kalanick caught chewing out an Uber driver who were supposed to be the strategic asset that everybody wants, the drivers, he's chewing them out. I mean, are things really that bad?
Well, we wrote both those stories about those executives, and they ended up in them leaving, which was kind of interesting. I don't think people leave if things are that good, right? And I don't think they didn't leave on their own volition necessarily. And so I think they've got to figure out how they're gonna keep those talented people. Those are 2 big jobs at that company: head of product and head of engineering at an engineering and product company. So that's going to be a question of how do they fill those jobs, who goes in those places. That's one issue. The other issue is how do they at the same time fix this culture that results in these kind of behaviors, and how do they How do they keep it to be a place where people want to work? You know, I get a lot of emails about Uber right now, and I'm not surprised, but all of them describe the same kind of toxic culture that has not aggressive culture. And I think that's more the problem than anything else, is the aggression in the culture is out of control.
Well,
and the question is, can they bring it into control?
Culture is one thing, but you have others suggesting that maybe they change their global strategy, maybe they graduate to something where they play more in regions of the world as opposed to in every country. Do you think something like that is likely?
Well, you know, I think this has been a growth go-go country, although they have pulled back in China when it didn't make any sense, and that was a nice deal for them to get out of there and stop spending money there, and at the same time get a piece of a market. You know, I don't think they're going to be in every market. I think it's more of who is the leadership of this company and how are they going to lead it into this IPO. And I think right now there's almost no chance that, you know, they could possibly IPO with the leadership they have there. They've got to really strengthen it. It's not. People keep comparing it to Sheryl Sandberg coming to Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is a very different person than Travis Kalanick.
Yeah.
Let's just say, like, by a long shot.
Is this a Twitter-level problem that they've got, the kind of poisonous boardroom atmosphere that Twitter had that seemed to keep them from focusing?
No, I think no. I just don't think they have a big enough board. I think it's very weighted towards Uber people. Obviously, that's a problem. They've got to bring out more outside board members and be willing to take suggestions. Now, these people have had a lot of success, and a lot of times you don't want to take suggestions, right? Like, we're doing great, so what? Well, unfortunately, this has been a long time thing that's been simmering at this company, and the question is, you know, they can't lose more executives. I can tell you that. Like, if you see more departures, it's going to be problematic for them. And then they've got to replace these executives, because these are two major positions, and they've got interim people in place, but it's just not enough. You know, they really do have to have a strong executive team going forward that likes to be there and presides over a workforce that likes to be there. And right now, from the emails I'm getting, people don't like to be there. So we'll see.
But you're not suggesting they can't go to IPO with Travis as the head of the company?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I think not right now, obviously. Right now it would be a disaster. But I think that they have to bring in more executives that seem to create a better working environment and a better leadership. And I think that they know that. I don't think that this is not something that's new to them. And I think Travis knows that, from what I can tell from people who have talked to him. I think he does understand that he needs help, and he said it. He said it publicly. He needs help. The question is, what kind of help is he going to get, and who is it going to be? And I've heard, and I'm going to have a piece on the names of the people they've talked to help him, but it's hard to figure out. I mean, I can't even just off the top of my head think of people who they could bring in, but there's a number of people that could help him. So we'll see.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.